Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner, and this is part 2 of the things we'd do differently if we were starting our business all over again. So if you haven't listened, last week has 8 key learnings for us that we are wanting to share with you so you can hack the system and build the business that you want, hopefully quicker than us. This lesson, podcast today has a further 8 points of what we really perceive as our greatest key learnings. If we had a time again, we would go back and do differently. And we hope that it's super helpful and beneficial for you and your journey. So let's jump straight on in there. Number 1, get clear about the problems you want to be working with and the people you want to help.
Yes, because sometimes you can start a business and you can be like, oh, I'm for everyone and I just want to, create, this wishy-washy thing, right? Like I just want to do this thing. But if you're really wanting to maximize your time, maximize your influence and really create powerful transformations for people, then you want to become clear on what it is in terms of the problems that you want to work with, that you want to help people with. And who are the people that, thinking back like to maybe friends or clients you've had in the past, who are the people that you love to help and work together with?
Yeah, totally.
Because when you get more clear, you get more of that. When you're less clear, you're kind of fumbling around like going, oh, maybe this and maybe that. And, oh, this popped up. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah. Instead of actually getting clear about like, what do I really, really want?
I just love that question because I just think that should be the key when you're creating any business is what do I actually want to be doing? Like forget what you don't want. What do you actually want to be doing? Who do you
Which even this, I touched on this in a podcast recently. We are not parented in this way. We are not raised in society in this way where what we want to create is something that's given valid time and attention. Like usually you just go along in life and you have to do this and you have to do that. What do you really want?
It's true. It's totally true. Yes.
Because otherwise if you don't have your own vision or your own plan or your own desires, you're just going to fall into someone else's. You're going to become a part of their plan. So whether that's your partner's plan, your children's plan, your employer's plan. Like, who do you really want to work with? What problems do you want to solve?
Yeah, totally. Get clear on that and continue to return to that whenever you're feeling stuck. Number 2, be willing to pivot and stop looking for the one thing to hang your hat on.
How many times can we say this?
If you and I have learned anything over the 7 years, it has been you actually don't know. And as soon as you think you found the thing, it changes and you're on a different pathway. So stop trying to find the thing.
And also on that, like follow your energy. Like if I look back on my events business, like the events that were effortless for me, that just filled the rooms were packed, were things that were energetically deeply aligned to me and that I loved and that I naturally put my attention to and my awareness to. Anything that felt hard and clunky, I was doing for someone else because I thought I should. So also back to this previous point around like, what would you really love? What is your life showing you that you are lit up by? What are you losing time learning about? What do you just feel, you know, tingles over? And get more curious and aligned with that. Like, be willing to explore that and see what's there, as opposed to getting stuck in this way that you think you need to do it because of some formula said. Like, we're in a creator economy now. Like, we're at an era of massive change and transformation where the way things were being done is not how they're being done now. So all of everything that has been is up for negotiation.
Totally. So, yes. Stop looking for the one thing, which brings us to point number 3. Show up as you are now. Because of this, previous point number 2, be willing to pivot. You've got to understand that as you grow and evolve, so too will your business, who you serve and how you serve them. It will never, for the rest of your business journey, be set in stone, ever. In fact, I hope it's not, because I perceive that would be a plateauing in service. And I don't know that you're doing anyone justice if you say that, including yourself.
Yeah.
So to have the willingness to continuously pivot and not make up stories in your head about, oh, well, it means I'm, you know, flighty or flimsy or floppy or whatever it is that you say about yourself. And instead being willing to recognize that you might have a vision for who and where you want to be, or who you aspire to be based on the, you know, perceived gods or goddesses that you subscribe to in the world. You might have a vision of who you want to be when you grow up. And you have always feel like you're going to be growing up, sure. But that doesn't mean who you are right now is not the perfect medicine for everyone that's walking the path up until your point now. So serve as you are, who you are, with what you have right now, knowing that every day in your life and your mentality is someone else's medicine, and continue to grow, which is the pivot part, right? So show up as you are now. Do you have any advice, Bridgie, for someone who's struggling to do that, to trust themselves that they know enough, have enough, can be enough to have a business now?
Yes. Well, look at who you're comparing yourself to first, because you can't perceive that you don't know enough without thinking that there's somebody who knows more, right? Like, we only know things by their opposite. So start to look for where you are comparing yourself, and then also where you do know enough, where people come to you for insider information, where you feel anchored and solid and certain, because that is where your mastery is. That is where your developmental edge is. That's where your competitive edge is. And I would look to expand that and trust that exactly the perfect client is going to come to that with what you have right now, not like what you're going to have in 6 months when you have the next certificate. What have you embodied now? What are you practicing and implementing now? What is something that you are very literate in that someone else who in your sphere wants to become more literate in, and for them, you are the person to take them there. Like,
totally.
We think that we need to be the absolute expert in things, but as you know personally, you often don't want to go to the top expert because you can't touch their experience. You can't feel into what it's like to embody that, because it's not attainable. You want to see somebody embodying what feels like a stretch for you, but also something that you can grasp and bring into your life.
Totally, 100%. Yeah, 100%. So show up as you are right now. You are somebody's medicine. And you and I, Bridgie, I mean, I remember I got this from you and I have no idea where you got it from, but it has always been something that has stuck in my head and that I continue to always think about whenever I'm feeling flaky on this one point, which is your ideal clients are you, with the same problems or mindset or whatever experiences as you 3 to 10 years ago. So you're always somebody's medicine for you 3 to 10 years ago. And how extraordinary in business, in this model of business, that we have the opportunity to heal ourselves, our younger selves 3 to 10 years ago, by virtue of healing and helping someone who embodies us back then. I don't think I said that word because I'm feeling
but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Exactly what you mean.
I'm just like, it blows my mind that I can be somebody else's medicine in the exact same moment that I'm being my own medicine by virtue of them being the reflection of me back then. But that's also my medicine. Like, it just, like, the intricacy of the people you end up working with. Like, I just am humbled with gratitude and heart-opened expansion every day when I think about what a gift it is to walk this path where I get to continuously bring more compassion to my younger self while I'm helping someone.
Oh, it's so profound. And even on that example, like, I had somebody DM me after they'd seen me in someone else's container, and she was saying, like, I'm not a mother yet, but like, it's just, I'm in this like course and I just do everything that you said. It resonated so much. And I was like, she's me. Like, before I became a mother, I read that many mother blogs. I did courses. I was like, I was committed, right?
Yeah.
And like, I love women with that intention. I love that. And I love that I can be for someone what someone was for me too.
Oh, it's the most wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
And when you said it, like, how could you ever go back?
Exactly. And also those, I find, I don't know about you, but that feedback comes to me just at the times where I'm like, does anybody really care? Yeah. What I'm about to post meaningful at all? Like, it's really making a difference.
I love the synchronicity of this universe. It's so hard. It's so hard. I got to tell you, when I was thinking about Wildflower and I was doing, what am I doing with it this year in December? I was like, I would go through these phases. I'm like, that's it. I remember I was sitting having coffee with Nick and I'm like, no, I'm going to have to close it because I don't want to do it the way that it is right now. So, I'm going to have to close it down. And then I literally would open up my phone and there's someone gushing. Oh, it's been life-changing. I'm so, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll keep going.
All right, then.
Synchronicity of universe. Like, it's always talking to you.
That's so good, isn't it?
So good. And when you just remove, like, I just remove any sense of ego in that at all and just see conversation with the universe.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you see it as conversation with the universe, whether like positive, which is what you might label this, or negative, you can then just go, oh, okay, that's helping me become more me.
Yeah, totally. Isn't that amazing? This podcast is brought to you by our masterminds. So, Bridget, what have you got going on?
Reimagining Motherhood, the mentorship. It's your 3-month immersion to support your mothering journey, your business and your relationship, and help them all work together so beautifully with a container of women very intimately held by me, and also one-to-one sessions with me as well. And Jules?
Hang on, you can find out more about that where?
I can find out more about that at bridgetwood.life, and it is 1111 for the 3 months. And you, Jules?
Wildflower Mentorship and Mastermind. So it's a mix of healing for the practitioner to expand your skills and mastermind business journey. So it's 6 months, includes a weekend intensive in-person experience. You can find out more at julietenner.love/wildflower mastermind. It's a 6-month journey for 2333. So number 4, see value in your children witnessing you in your business journey.
Yeah, this is a really good one for helping you link your motherhood and business by actually reframing and shifting that perception that you can easily have around this taking away from my children and taking away from my presence for them, to instead be something that they look to as inspiration. Like, they might not look to it now, but that they may go back and look at it and go, oh, wow, like my mum just made it work. Like, my mum was determined to follow what was inspiring to her and determined to be of service, even when she was busy with us, right? Or she just was so committed to just creating new ways to create like more flexibility, more heart, like more intention in our family. Like, right, like thinking about what you want them to perceive, and then how you get to help yourself rewrite what's already in your body. Like, a big one for me this year, which I'm taking on, is the stories and narratives we hold around social media and our use of social media. Not only for myself and what's wrapped up in my experiences last year with it, but also what I've internalized from my mother's perceptions of it and what I can see coming out in towards my kids and their screen use. Because I know that if I push my edges through my business to expand how I show up and create community and bust past my own bullshit, then it's going to totally reshape how I relate to my children and how they navigate that world, because they're creating the metaverse, right? Like, and if I don't like hold my feet to the fire of this world that we're creating and co-creating as online entrepreneurs, then I'm not going to be able to relate to my kids. And that's heartbreaking to me. So that point alone is enough for me to see why my business deeply serves my children.
Amen. Amen. And I'm going to add into that. I see it already changing my children's lives and perception of their own selves in the world and what their futures can look like, because it's no longer university is the only way to go, or university and my end, VCE score is what makes or breaks or validates me as a human. There's 1,000 other avenues into making the money that you want to make and living the life that you want to live. And it doesn't have to look like anything that the education system tells you it looks like. So by being a literal walking embodiment of that and not just speaking about possibility, my children embed that in their souls, like it is part of their DNA. So the way that they look at the world is enormously different. And by virtue of me having so many, I mean, like you and I, Bridget, we're beacons for integrity and compassion and family-centric living. So the women that we vibrate as like lights or moths towards each other share that same value system. So you and I are both surrounded by concentric circles of mums who have children that play with our children, who are all looking at the world the same way, doing work the same way in the world, although have different pockets of the world in which they serve. And I just adore that, because the world that my children see is so vastly different to the world that school tells them about.
Yeah. Wow.
So I just like kiss the ground grateful. Even if I didn't have as financially successful business as I did, just having that community of women inspiring my children and changing their neural pathways would be money enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's wealth right there. Yeah.
Oh, like you couldn't buy that. You can't send them to a university education to receive that.
No.
So I just am so grateful that I have networked, joined masterminds, connected with women, mostly online, right? I mean, you and I were lucky that we met in person. That's a rare experience.
Yeah.
That I create these experiences that my children are, by virtue of me, just as an extension of me, part of. So the way they see the world and what's possible for them is different. So when I say to them, you will always live your best life. You don't have to have it figured out now. There's 1,000 ways to enter that thing. Like you're going to live a good life. There's like so many ways. Or I'll walk out from, I'm like, I'm off to a podcast. They're like, cool, see you afterwards. And I'll get in. They'll be like, how was your podcast? How was your work session? I'll be like, I'm catching up with Bridgie. I'm going to go have dinner and we're going to, do some power business stuff. And then I'll walk back and, they'll be like, what'd you do? What'd you learn? How'd it go? Like, how freaking cool is that?
Yeah. And just being able to like weave your work with your life on your own terms. I mean, that is something that for some people is the most foreign, untouchable concept, and yet we're living it, right? Like that's just phenomenal. Like to not have to have this massive separation, but instead be able to weave it together in a way that feels really nourishing. I mean, like what permission does that give to your children?
I just think it's extraordinary. I think it's so wonderful. So then we're moving on. We've got 4 more to go, Bridgie. I know you got to go, so we're going to smack them out. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. Have a framework. Bring in some masculine structure into how you're running your femme-based business.
Yes. Love it.
Freedom.
That sounds like a tagline, Julie. I like it.
I can't even remember what I said. Structure is freedom. We want to think that it's constraint and control, but it offers you freedom when you know that's filed there, that's got time there, which means I can really let go and be present here.
Yeah.
So instead of taking on the mental load and the continuing of mental load, create boundaries and pockets of dedicated time to the things that are really important to you. And then you can relax. The mental load disappears because you know at this time on that day you're showing up for this. You're not like running all the things because you're never quite sure how you're going to fit them in or when you're going to do them. Or da, da, da. I actually think the mental load craziness comes from not enough structure.
Yeah.
So get your structure, get a framework for how it's entering your life, your parenting, your relationship, how you're structuring your business based on what feels really good and how you want to serve your people. Create structures for freedom. Number 5, remember and reiterate the basics, which you and I forget all the time.
All the time. The amount of times I get like DMs or questions, is there a podcast on that? Like when I'll post stuff in my stories or do things, I'm like, oh, there probably is. But probably we should revisit that thing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's many listeners who have been on the journey with us for a long time. And then there's new listeners. Welcome. Hi, new listeners who you know, I kind of hear us make these like kind of throwaway comments on things like values or like regulation or dysregulation without, you know, underpinning that with the basics and, you know, watering the foundation. So that's one thing that I would change and I'm trying to practice being better at now, about how do we continue to talk about the basics, about the foundations upon which everything else that your business or your life is built upon, so that people can understand and access it. Otherwise, it just feels like this is weird concept that's not actually like tangible.
And doesn't have foundations. It's the crumbling tower otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah.
So return to your basics often, even when they feel like, everyone knows that already and I'm not going to go back to it. Number 7, redistribute your content, which is also a lesson that we continue to learn 7 years later.
Like, you know, the amount of stuff that's in this podcast that we could turn into posts.
It's never our issue.
Content's not our issue at all. It's definitely optimizing that content.
Yeah.
So get better at that earlier and you'll have a more sustainable, successful business.
Yes. So that means using the one piece of content in a savvy way across several different platforms or ways of meeting different people who like to consume content in different ways, but you're not creating new content, but we just continuously a new content creating machines. Yeah. And forget that's, you know, a thing that you go back and do. So we're still learning that lesson, but we wish that we had embedded that in our business DNA earlier than what we do.
That's one for the structure part as well. Structure in that.
It's this part 2 is way more structural, isn't it? And our last point for our 16 points on what we would do differently if we were starting business over again is see your selling as a potential for healing.
I first heard this statement probably, I want to say 6 years ago, and this person at the front of this, like, you know, slick looking, you know, seminar was like, selling is healing, this guy was saying. And I had this like bristle of like, you know, minor like repulsiveness in my body because I was thinking, no, like it's just taking people's money, it's taking people for a ride. Because that was how it was packaged up in this form. But I'm thinking, no, the more I've sat with that, actually, when you are deeply in your own integrity and you are from your heart speaking about something that you know could transform someone's life, your selling is healing. I mean, I can count, like I have countless experiences of like reading something and it just giving me just the like reboost or perspective flip to see my kids in a totally different light or to look at my husband differently. And I might not have approached that moment in that way had I not read or heard or engaged or entered that container. You know, if I had not participated in that piece of information that somebody else was essentially packaging and selling to me.
Yeah.
So selling is incredibly healing.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful to have what feels like a fair exchange. I would love this thing. And so what I can do is give you this thing. And then I feel in fair exchange or equal exchange, which means I can fully receive it rather than feeling weird about it, or I can't ask that person, or I can't. That's where that exchange, it's just one form of exchange that means everybody's feeling good. And therefore everybody's growth is maximized in that moment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So seeing what the message you have to give, the product you have to offer someone or the world, the wisdom that you have that someone else would love to learn from you as entirely healing and coming from that place of this is just a really beautiful way to have fair exchange that allows everybody's maximization of potential.
Yeah.
So we hope that you have 16 points to reflect upon for your own business consideration or journey. We fully hope that you would love to dive in with Bridget or I in our 2 different masterminds. So, Bridgie, you've got...
Yes, so coming up on the 20th of Jan launches Reimagining Motherhood, the mentorship. So it's really for the woman who wants to go on a deeper journey of expanding how much she embodies and experiences her mothering alongside the other areas of life that are important to her. So perhaps it's her relationship, perhaps it's growing a business, nurturing her business, perhaps it's making it all work together. So that's a 3-month mastermind, and it is also features 2 one-to-one sessions with me as well as box of support. So it really is like having me in your back pocket. So there's only 8 spots available for that. So if you wanted to jump in, head to bridgetwood.life to find out more.
Imagine.
And you, Jules?
You can join Wildflower, the mentorship and mastermind. So it's a 6-month container. It includes 1 intensive in-person weekend with me, which if you can't make it down to Melbourne, can be joined virtually for the full experience. It's 6 months in a Facebook container with me, so a group where we have continuous touch points, and it's a once a month 2-hour accountability and business mastermind check-in and review on where you're at and how you're tracking. So that's 2,333 for the 6 months. There's only 2 points in the year you can join, which is Jan and July. And find out more at julietenner.love/wildflower mastermind. So you can connect with us at nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to hear from you if there's something you'd love us to dive deeper into, especially if it is something that's been highlighted in these last 2 podcasts. If you're like, oh, that thing is me, and I would just love to know how Bridget and Julie do that, or can you string that bit out? Please reach out to us. We would love to hear from you in DM, in PM, in email.
We love it. We love all the interactions in all the places.
We do. So please reach out to us. We're really here just to help the world of mothers really identify who they are and the wisdom that they hold, and to honour that as sacred rather than as this invisibilized experience of womanhood. So reach out to us in any way you can.
Yes, remember to nourish the woman, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.